Hello everyone, my name is Sam Bolesung and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So in this video, we are going to talk about AWS networking. Now, before we mention AWS or the cloud, let us first understand what networking really means. So in the simplest way possible, networking is simply how computers communicate with each other. So think about this. When you open up a website and or when you send a message on WhatsApp, even when you stream a video on YouTube, your device is talking to another device somewhere else. So that communication is made possible by networking. Now let us use a simple analogy of roads and transportation. Now see computers as roads, or see computers as houses rather, and see data as cars. Now see networks. Now we understand that networks are roads. So what happens without roads? If there are no roads, cars cannot move and houses becomes isolated. So in a real sense, without networking, applications cannot communicate. Without networking, servers cannot talk to each other. And also, without networking, nothing actually works over the internet. Nothing works. So this is why networking is the backbone of IT. Networking is the backbone of IT and DevOps. So now, DevOps engineers are not network engineers. So this part is extremely important, especially for beginners. So DevOps engineers do not design network. So let me be very clear. DevOps engineers do not design networks from scratch. So this responsibility belongs to network engineers. And if you are dealing on the cloud, this responsibility belongs to cloud architects, and this responsibility also belongs to infrastructure architects. So what DevOps engineers actually do um, is implementing these networks. So because this network is already designed, you are only given instruction of parameters. So your job is to implement and use that network properly. For example, you can always come across something like use this VPC. If you are dealing with AWS, use this VPC, deploy this particular service in a private subnet, expose just this port, do not allow public access. So these are the common things you will always come across as a DevOps engineer. So now let us look at this in a very simple analogy. So think of it like a building in a city. So city planners design the roads. You're only given a plot of land. So your job is to build a house according to the rules in that community. So you don't design the city, all right? You only follow the plan and build correctly. Why is AWS networking important in DevOps? Now, networking appears everywhere in DevOps. This is an important thing to note. As a DevOps engineer, you cannot escape networking. So without networking knowledge, your application will not be reachable, your deployment will fail, your service might even be insecure. So in real DevOps, things like your CI/CD pipelines need access to servers. Your application need access to databases. If you are running a 3-tier application or even a 2-tier application, your application needs access to databases. Now, your load balancers need access to traffic or need access to route traffic. Now, how about your Kubernetes services? Your Kubernetes services also need internal communication. So, in essence, no networking, no DevOps. So, having established this fact, let us see some common terminologies in AWS networking. So, the very first thing we'll look at is the VPC. So the VPC stands for Virtual Private Cloud in AWS. So think of a VPC like your own private network inside AWS. So a VPC is isolated, a VPC is secure, depending on your design, and a VPC is also fully controlled by you. So everything you deploy in AWS must live inside a VPC. All right. So think of a VPC like a fence compound. So inside this compound, you can build houses, you can install shops, you can control who enters and exits. All right. So outside the fence, nobody can access anything unless you allow it. So even if you don't create a VPC yourself, AWS gives you access to a default VPC. So another thing we look at is what? IP range, which is known as CIDR. So your CIDR defines the range of IP addresses available in your network. So your network engineer can give you something like 10.0.0.0/16. This means that your VPC can create many IP addresses, and each server in your VPC gets one IP. So think of your CIDR like house numbers in a street. So if a street has only 10 houses, you only build, or if a street has only 10 house numbers, all right, you can only build 10 houses. If it has 1,000 numbers, you can build many houses. So CIDR controls how many resources you can have. So as a DevOps engineer, you don't calculate CIDR, you just use what is provided. So another terminology you always come across is subnet. What is a subnet? Now, a VPC is usually divided into what we call subnet. So a subnet is a smaller section inside a VPC. So we use subnet for better organization. We also use subnet for better security. We also use subnet for high availability. So in general, we have um, two types of subnets. We have the public subnet. We also have the private subnet. All right. So your public subnet has internet access, and it is used to deploy things like load balancers. It is also used to deploy things like internet facing services, and you can also use it to deploy your Bastion hosts or your Bastion servers. So how about a private IP address? Sorry, a private subnet rather. So a private subnet is a direct opposite of public subnet. So a private subnet does not have no internet access. So it is usually used for applications, databases, etc. So now let us consider an analogy we can always relate with. Now think of a VPC like a very large building. All right. Now think of a private subnet like the staff only rooms, and think of the public subnet like your reception area. So anyone can access the reception area, but only staffs in that organization can access the staff only room. So what happens is that visitor stays outside and only trusted people go inside. So this is what happens with private subnet and public subnet. So whenever you are designing a network, be sure that things like your databases, some applications should be kept in the private subnet. Now, another thing we should consider is gateways. So an internet gateway allows before we consider internet gateways, we have two basic we have two types of gateways. We have the internet gateway, IGW, and we also have the NAT gateway. So the internet gateway allows traffic from the internet into your VPC and also allows traffic from your VPC to the internet. So without internet gateway, nothing connects you to the outside world. How about the NAT gateway? A NAT gateway allows private resources to access the internet, and it blocks inbound internet traffic. Inbound traffics are traffics that comes into your servers. Now, let us look at this analogy. Now, you have a house. So your internet gateway is like your main gate of a house. All right? You can come in, you can go out of the gate. How about the NAT gateway? Look at a NAT gateway as a window. You can only look out, but nobody can enter. Another thing we'll always come across is security groups. So what is a security group? A security group is a firewall attached to a resource. You can see it as a host-based firewall. So a security group controls what traffic can enter. It also controls what traffic can leave. So security group works at the resource level. So security group only allows traffic, and security group is very common in DevOps. So you can think of a security group as a bouncer at a door. So these bouncers only allow people with permission to get in. Now, another thing we will always see is NACL. NACL stands for Network Access Control List. So this guy works at the subnet level. So NACL allows or denies traffic. So NACL applies to all the resources in the subnet. So you can think of security group. Security group also allows traffic, but security group allows traffic at the resource level or the host level. All right. Now, host, you can always find hosts in the subnet, and NACL allows or denies traffic at the subnet level. So this also affects the host directly. All right. So you can see security group as a door lock, and you can see NACL as the gate to your street. So in DevOps, we use security groups more because NACLs are usually already configured. So how does DevOps engineer use AWS networking? The big how. So as a DevOps engineer, you will usually deploy applications into correct subnets. You will also configure security groups based on specifications, and it is your duty to ensure that services can communicate, and it is also your duty to troubleshoot simple networking issues. So you will not design complex enterprise network, and you will not replace network engineers. So your job is basically implementation, automation, and reliability. So make sure you understand this video, because in the next video, we will be combining everything we have done so far in this playlist from our to form our very first capstone project. So we will get to see how all these concepts work together in a real setup. If this video helped you, please do well to like, comment, and share this video. And also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next lesson. Thank you.